So hello to Ray Grove. You are the SVP Global Head of Product at Thomson Reuters. Nice to be chatting with you today, Ray.
Mutual. Absolutely. Nice to be chatting with you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So you are an esteemed expert within the world of e-invoicing and compliance. You've been in the industry, if by my calculations, about 15 years, right? So quite a few years at Thomson Reuters, before that EY, and before that
Before that, Soros.
Sovos.
Yeah.
Is that right? I've done my homework?
You've
Um,
done your homework. Yeah.
I've done
It
my
making me
homework.
feel a little aged
No,
by that,
well,
but absolutely
no,
you've done
it's
your
not
homework.
not showing. You're good. You're good. Would you say your background is more compliance or more automation?
I'd say my background's more where compliance and technology meet each other and the automation side for business. I look at it, you know, I'm a product guy fundamentally, and as a product leader, my job is to make sure that we're developing solutions that solve real problems for real customers. And the problem of compliance is something that is material for organizations. And when I stumbled into that, to your account, just over 15 years ago, that kind of became a very complicated, very fascinating space that for some reason it looks like I might be spending a life sentence in the world of tax and
Hmm.
compliance.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's too much going on for experts like you to be leaving it, right? Um, so today we're focusing on the part of the Thomson Reuters
Mhm.
product that helps end users with e-invoicing mandates. So that's where we're
Mhm.
going to be centering our conversation. And
Yeah.
so with that in mind, what would you say the Thomson Reuters vision is regarding mandates? And second part of what will end up being quite a meaty question is how does it help, in your opinion, AP, AR, and VAT people?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I'll maybe give a little bit of history on how Thomson Reuters got into this space and sector, because Thomson Reuters has been a provider with compliance solutions in the world of tax, global trade, legal, risk, et cetera, for a long time, right? And I'm responsible for what is broadly known as the OneSource portfolio globally. Within that, we've had a long history with our Brazil business, supporting Brazil electronic invoicing, very strong major provider there. And, as we kept an eye on what was happening in what we refer to sometimes as the transactional compliance space. So this is the compliance space that is not really a look back, but it's that real time, like, as you're doing commercial business activities, you have these obligations. Electronic invoicing, obviously, and CTC compliance rising to the top of problems for businesses and customers. And that's when we, for a number of years, had a partnership with Pagero company. You may have heard of them, the leader in electronic invoicing. If you look at the IDC report, they're top upper right for a reason. And we thought, if we're going to solve this problem, we looked at the different ways to approach it, and we're the best in the other categories that we serve. So we decided to make an acquisition of the best provider in that space, and that then became part of Thomson Reuters. With the Pagero offering, and now OneSource Pagero, what we've done and what we do for customers is we've actually integrated that into our broader suite. So not only is it solving the compliance side of whether it be connecting with PEPL or the variations that every regime has, uh, but it also supports helping us connect customers from a standpoint of making sure they get tax calculations right, that they get periodic reporting right, that they have enterprise grade connections and integrations into ERPs, and that for things like our global trade offerings, we can also bring the Pagero Business Network and our global trade offerings together. Because the funny thing about compliance is everybody's like, oh, there's this thing that I have to do. But through the process of looking at your e-invoicing obligations, and one of the things that attracted us to Pagero was also they weren't just a compliance provider. They weren't just a last mile solution. They were also an automation provider. So doing checks on the quality of the invoices, making sure that you're automating the process of that, as well as connecting businesses with a open business network that connects over 30 million businesses. So that business network and that automation is a big part of what attracts us, because we think being able to do commerce should be something that's easy, that's frictionless. But the friction that organizations are facing with these CTC mandates is, if you're not complying, commerce stops for you, not
Mhm.
later, but in the moment, and in many regimes, in many areas. So we saw that as a great opportunity. Obviously, our global reach and breadth has allowed us, and just overall our financial position has allowed us to heavily invest into that organization, the portfolio. So our our goal and our objective and what we're delivering is the most complete, broadest coverage, and most feature-rich capabilities and e-invoicing that is available today in the market.
Mhm. Great. We're going to flesh out a little bit more about compliance versus automation,
Mm-hmm.
and how it benefits your AP and your AR clients. Um,
Yeah.
from a VAT client perspective, so how much of your overall, I mean, stepping out of the mandates and the one source Pagero
Mm-hmm.
for a moment, your how much of your VAT offering, tax offering, would you say is centered on the mandates and the CTCs, and how much of it is broader VAT tax stuff?
Oh, yeah. So we, within what I call the indirect tax portfolio, so that's where we have our determination solutions. So when you're doing a transaction determining tax, really important, especially if you talk about like some of the cross-border obligations that have come to be, as well as our compliance offerings. So doing the actual VAT filings, SAFT, SII. We've been in that space for well over a decade. Like, so
Yes.
we've got a
Yeah.
very, very strong portfolio there. And that's actually in VAT registration ID, validation, and all of those things were standing existing solutions that we had at Thomson Reuters, where we service, some of the largest companies and organizations in the world. We've got a,
Yeah.
so I don't know if that's addressing your question, but we've been in that side of the compliance space for some time. And that's been part of like what makes the OneSource suite so strong. The 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 unique part of what we're seeing and what's happening is everybody's like, well, is VAT compliance going away? Or am I going to have to do this periodic reporting? And the answer is really no. It's going to evolve, right? And you see that. You look at even with things like Brazil tax reform, maybe outside the UK, for an example. But if you kind of look at some of these regimes that were first movers on some of these new compliance obligations, they tend to leapfrog, and they tend to be going to use a hockey phrase, they skate to where the puck is going versus where it's
Hmm.
at.
Hmm.
And if you look at like a SAFT filing, there's a lot more information. You've got inventory information. You're really getting that standard audit file for tax, and regimes are getting additional information. That's different than the real time. The real time is to make sure that they've got visibility, they're getting the collections, and that they're closing the VAT gap, right? And that's one purpose, but to make sure that you're accurately reporting and that you're properly meeting those obligations. That's where that periodic reporting, I don't think, is going to go away. And we've been bringing together those portfolios. And recently, uh, this last week, I announced our agentic capabilities for sales and use tax. We're actually bringing those capabilities into a VAT compliance solution. So the work of touchless compliance is something that we're delivering for our customers. But what's unique is, because we cover that total waterfront of determination, periodic reporting, and real-time compliance with electronic invoicing, we also are able to do things like ERP reconciliation between your determination engine and your compliance solution. So, when you talk about AP, AR, and you talk about automation, you know the way that we look at it, and is automation gives you truth in process. And if you have truth in process, because you're driving automation, because at the end of the day, the situations that create audits and issues for people is usually the people. I love people, but I hate to say it, usually it's just inadvertent human mistake because there isn't enough hours in the day to make sure you're getting everything right. So when you can put automation, which puts process in place, so you have truth in process, you now have truth in data. And when you have truth in data, you can have truth in compliance. So that's why we see it as a fundamental fact that you have to not just focus on the compliance piece, but you also have to focus on the automation piece. Because if you don't do both, what we have seen is you then have that breakdown of truth in data. So that's where
Right.
why we do these integrations, why we focus on automation, why we focus on giving customers additional tools than just, can I send a file in the format to the
Yeah.
authority?
Right. So you were quite involved, weren't you, Ray, in the acquisition of Pagero in 2024? I think you mentioned in our last chat that that was the case.
Yes, yes, yeah,
So
rather
what
public acquisition
it
due to
was
this.
public. I mean, it was
Yeah,
public. There was a ton of momentum around it. There was something, you know, it certainly had a bit of a dramatic
Vertex
edge to it.
thought they were going to buy them.
Yeah,
Then Avalara thought they were going to buy them, and then
yeah,
we ended up buying them.
you
Yes,
did. Yeah.
but
Now,
the three biggest players in the space basically were saying we all want this to become part of our family, um, because as I
why was
stated
that?
earlier, it's hands down it was the best offering in the market,
Yeah.
and
Now,
that.
Your your
Yes.
your your view, I mean, where it sits in the IDC quadrant. So it's obviously there now.
Mhm.
And remind the viewers, was it there before you bought it as well?
The IDC hadn't done, I believe, a full assessment in that sense, but
By that time,
you
yeah,
could,
yeah.
yeah.
So what was it about the Pagero solution? Okay, so the best out there. Other
Mhm.
CEOs or product
Yeah,
SVPs that I speak to, they will also say that their product is the best out there. So
I'm
what
sure they
gave it
would.
the edge for
The
you?
good thing is I have a unique perspective of knowing all of them. um, so sometimes you wonder, like, do people get to where they get to through dumb luck or, like, purposeful strategy, and sometimes it's usually a blend of both. And the magic of Pagero is actually that it didn't start out as a compliance company. It started off as the main goal was to make commerce easy, to connect businesses, to drive automation. Their customers brought them into the e-invoicing space. But having the open business network and being a business network first was the first problem that they were solving for, because they wanted to be able to solve that problem that was solved traditionally through EDI providers. And nobody likes EDI. It's all very custom, it's all very heavy, it breaks, it's hard to implement, and it's a mess to manage, right? So that was what the organization was first looking to solve. And by approaching it that way, they then created a framework that allowed for what we refer to as one connection global reach. So when you implement Pagero and you implement the Puff format, there's all of these different requirements that are coming. They're always changing, but we take all of that work away from you. So you integrate with us, and then you're able to comply globally. So with other providers, it's really kind of it's more of a bag of bolts, largely. They've got a region coverage here, a region coverage there, one team covers this, one team covers that, and they're actually like many disparate systems. And I think in the space and in the industry, people have gotten away with that for some time, because everybody was looking at the problem in isolation of, like, oh, now I got to do this country. Oh, now I got to do this country. Oh, now I got to do this country. So even people have been doing e-invoicing for so long, and the way that they've been solving it is through maybe the same provider, but still largely point solutions in each and every country. But you eventually reach a tipping point where the problem becomes so big and complex and so core to your business operations that you need something that scales and that's more operational than that, which is why Pagero has that unique offering. And that's the piece that really sets them apart, is that you're not doing individual little country implementations and that they're not actually separate little products. Pagero is Pagero. And
That
that is unique. Now, nobody else is going to admit that that's the way their solutions are built, but it is. Like, it's just the reality of how they approached it. But part of it is because they approached it as a compliance provider first, not an automation provider first. So that core, like where Pagero started as a company, defined what they became when they became an e-invoicing solution provider, and that's what sets them apart. And that's why, we refer to, the OneSource portfolio and OneSource Plus as, the intelligent compliance network, because through the network and through these capabilities of the network of Pagero, the network of our partners, and the network of these other solutions, we're just taking a completely different approach, right? Because these things shouldn't be disconnected. They need to be connected to drive that automation, to drive that truth in process, to drive that truth in data, to give the truth in compliance.
so Puff, Pagero Universal Format,
Yes.
if I've captured that correctly. And that's your connect once, use for everyone. So
Yes.
this is connect once on the supplier side. Is that right? Use for
Correct.
all buyers.
Yes.
Or is it? Yeah. Okay. So that's where we've
And
got
we,
that.
and you still have suppliers that can send things to you in whatever format. Like, so, like like it's what it is it's a framework for our customers to be able to communicate, to be able to communicate with the governments and the authorities. So you're not spending a bunch of time re-architecting your systems and doing the ETL and doing
Yeah.
all of that EDI work,
Just the one connection.
which drives a lot of cost and frankly a lot of risk.
Yeah. So a supplier, for example, that's just
Mhm.
gone live in Belgium,
Mhm.
they can be using Puff, and then there's nothing that they need to do in September when France goes live for
Nope.
a
No.
French entity.
I mean, there
Um,
could be some random exception, but generally the puff format is so expansive that you onboard to that.
yeah.
There are customers that'll choose, like, I only want to onboard for this portion of this, but we always recommend to our customers onboard to the full puff format, because as things
Yeah.
expand, it covers that. But it is very rare that we have to make changes to that format, because it already covers, over 80 countries. And, most people aren't doing, they're doing variations, but they're not looking for entirely new data sets at this point anymore.
Yeah. Can you just bring us up to speed? Because acquisition happened in 2024. We're now early 2026. So let's call it 18 to 24 months after the
24
acquisition.
months, yeah.
How embedded is
Yeah.
the technology into
Mhm.
the wider Thomson Reuters platform?
Yeah. So let me start with a couple of things, right? Because people are always like, okay, you buy a company and then all of a sudden, it changes wildly overnight, and you lose all of what it was. So right out of the gate, the product organization and the engineering organization, we integrated into my organization, and I always start with that, because that's a really important piece of, that's how you actually bring things together, right? Is you got to bring the people together first. We haven't lost anybody from our product organization or from our engineering organization. We've actually only added to those teams and those resources. So the people that built Pagero, the people that know Pagero, and the people that made it great, we've only grown that team. So that's very different than what happens
Mm.
when perhaps an organization gets acquired by a PE firm, or a organization that doesn't have the richness of balance sheet that an organization like Thomson Reuters has. Now, when I was talking about like the ERP reconciliation and all of those pieces, like we've already uh, done a lot of the work of connecting those offerings together. We're actually, we've embedded our Pagero capabilities even into our legal products. So lawyers also have invoicing requirements and need to manage electronic invoices. So we've done that work already. Completely different part of Thomson Reuters business. We're bringing our risk portfolio. Thomson Reuters has a very strong risk portfolio. So for supplier vetting and validation, bringing that into the Pagero network. So we've already done a lot of the work on the tax side because we had the partnership with Pagero. A lot of those relationships and work was kind of actually already underway to build
Right.
deep integrations. And before we acquired them, we had OneSource e-invoicing that was powered by Pagero. But the way that we developed that framework for integration to create those ERP productized ERP integrations, which is another unique benefit. This is something that Thomson Reuters brought to the Pagero team from standpoint of know-how, skill, and relationships. That work allowed us to just fully integrate the portfolio into what we're doing. So, it's always a journey, but we're more integrated than a lot of companies that I've been part of, where you've had something you bought 20 years ago and it's still not integrated.
Yeah.
But this is a major strategic initiative, not just for me, but for Thomson Reuters as a whole. We've been doing very, very well from a business standpoint with this portfolio, from a growth perspective, and it's we're not slowing down. So
Yeah.
it's been really encouraging, and the culture of Pagero and the culture of Thomson Reuters, I very well. So it's kind of like we were dating for a while with the partnership before we had the acquisition, which is part of, if you go back to the acquisition, where they were comfortable making a bet with Thomson Reuters,
Right.
and saying like, hey, this is a company we want to be part of, even to like, the employee shareholders level of it, to be supportive of that.
Yeah. Now, is it fair to say that the Thomson Reuters sweet spot is enterprise? Maybe that's being a little bit unfair, but where I'm
Yeah.
going with this question is WorkDay and the relationship, the partnership that you've announced with them. And
Yeah.
WorkDay's a little bit more in the SME, kind of
Yeah.
smaller enterprise market. Can you
Mhm.
tell me a bit about how embedded is the e-invoicing functionality within the Workday suite?
Uh, it's we are natively embedding the capabilities into Workday. So there will be, from a customer standpoint, it'll feel like there's no daylight between Workday and Thomson Reuters. And that's not just even for Pagero and e-invoicing, but that's actually the entire indirect tax suite. So our determination, our uh, other compliance products, as well as e-invoicing, is the ultimate goal. Like, and that's the goal really with any of the ERP providers and vendors that we work with. And as you know, we also have a relationship with Oracle, relationship with SAP, and that's a key component, right? Because that's part of how you create that automation, and that's the embedded pillar of my strategy. Have you, where I want to bring my capabilities where my customers are, and
Yeah,
if I'm the wizard behind the curtain, making it all work and making the magic happen, I'm fine with that.
yeah,
The main goal is that we're able to drive that process and automation. And to the enterprise statement, um, it is true that in the enterprise segment, we are the best provider for enterprises. Like the biggest, most complicated customers choose Thomson Reuters, choose OneSource, because we have the most coverage, the most capabilities, the most functionality to meet those needs. However, Pagero was not a pure enterprise provider, right? They were very much in the SMB space, and we also at Thomson Reuters, although we kind of have like we're known for the enterprise, we have customers that are very, very, very small, using our solutions every single day. And we're seeing a lot of growth in the mid-market and SMB segment, in part because, one, a lot of the providers in that space don't have the richness of content and capabilities that those customers now demand, because the bar for maintaining compliance has been risen by authorities. And two, with some of these new obligations, um, you need something that's a bit easier and more connected. And as we go into ecosystems like Workday and others, having being able to select a provider to work with that's part of that ecosystem, like Thomson Reuters, that checks off a lot of boxes and not just like a point solution box, is an important thing for customers. It gives them one throat to choke. If they're having a problem, they can reach out to me.
yeah. All right, this is my final question.
Mhm.
I know we're going to be out of time very shortly. Now, you mentioned earlier about how Thomson Reuters, OneSource is bringing together, OneSource PR is bringing together the compliance, the automation. So my question to you is that Pagero's heritage started largely in accounts receivable.
Mhm.
So my question to you is, how do you compete on the AP side, especially with those born in the automation kind of space,
Well,
providers who,
mhm.
they've just built up and built up and built up the automation offering around the AP bit. How
Mhm.
do you kind of meet them kind of head on?
Well, like let's use an example, like a Coupa, for example, right? A big name in the space. Like there's a lot of providers in the space. Um, you know, one, I'm not looking to like compete with everybody in the world. Like, so we deliver automated automation capabilities for our customers, and there are sometimes capabilities that other providers do in that space that are focused on that, and that's why we have the partnerships organization, why we partner with those companies, right? Like a great example is, SAP has, a framework for electronic invoicing, but I still partner with them and I still drive those capabilities because there are things that I do that they don't do, a lot of things, right? To give coverage and what their customers need. So what I would say is like, you don't have to, I don't see everything as like, I have to be the one solution for every piece of the puzzle. And that's where having the business network and being an open business network, which allows other automation providers to work with us to work with them, and people to come into our network and say, hey, we can add value to your customers. And that's true across a big swath of my portfolio. We have a lot of product partnerships where people probably don't even realize that it's a partner that's part of this solution that I'm buying from Thomson Reuters, uh, because it just feels very native and a very fluid experience. So that's kind of how we look at it, right? Because the problem we have to first solve right now for all of our customers is making sure that we meet all those country mandates, that we do that really well, and that we're connecting that truth of tax, um, because that is a very big, difficult problem. It's not something that there's a lot of startups in the space, but it's not something you can solve with the startup. There's a lot of operational challenges to it. There's a lot of legislative challenges to it. There's outside of the technology. The technology part is a really hard part. Don't want to take that away, but e-invoicing and meeting those obligations around the globe is so much more than just having a piece of technology. And with that growth, that's where we're high centered right now. So on a lot of those pieces, we're looking, to integrate with partners and do that, and we do that every day.
Great. Ray Grove, it's been a pleasure and look forward to the next time. Thanks so much.
Take care, Susie.